What's up, world, and welcome to the very first episode of The Bright Side Show. I am your host, Stef, and with me I have my lovely wife, Crystal.
Hello there.
And for today, for episode 1, our very first episode, we have our very, very special guests, our friends, Imani and Vince.
Hey, world.
Hey, everybody. How y'all doing?
Yeah, so it's episode 1, and like I said, it's The Bright Side Show, and I guess our mission is really just to kind of look at the bright side. I feel like with the world being kind of like fueled by negativity and drama and nonsense, we taking a different approach. So how y'all feeling?
You know, we're excited. We're excited to be part of your first episode. This is your vision, so we feel honored.
I'm very excited to be here.
As you can tell by that tone,
excited.
he really is.
Yeah, bright side. This is something that we've talked about. I think it's needed. So
Yeah.
I'm excited to be here. Excited that we're doing it. I'm just happy.
Yeah. Nah, I'm not gonna lie. I'm nervous as hell.
And not alone.
We all
Not alone.
Yeah. This is definitely new. New.
It's new, but it's needed, and it's great. It's a great moment.
Yeah.
And I'm excited that you guys are here. Our very close friends.
Indeed.
So.
Greatly appreciate
What a
you.
great way to initiate this next step.
Yes. All right. Yeah. So, as you might see, there are 4 of us today, and it'll be a different format every episode depending on the topic. But today we're talking about marriage. We're talking about relationships. So, Imani and Vince, how did you meet?
Woo! You want something?
Yes.
It's a loaded one.
We can both answer this.
Okay.
Oh, wait, so is
we
it-
have different
and it's-
perspectives, maybe.
So, all right, yeah. So,
We have a lot of different meetings. I'll
Vince,
say.
from your perspective, how did it come about?
Let's get there. Let's first start with
Yeah. So I think the journey there are different perspectives to the journey, but like once we actually
100%.
started dating, that was very clear cut. But
Yep.
like yes, to the journey. So okay, you can start, babe.
I'm gonna start at the very, 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 very
Oh
beginning.
gosh.
Yes.
Don't
First
ask
time,
years because
the first time, I don't remember the year. The first time
knows?
I met Imani, we were in Terry's car. Do you remember this?
Yes.
We were in a car going
Yes.
to do some sort of service project. I think I was in the front seat, and
Yep.
you and
I think it was me. Just
Pastor
me
Ashley were in the
maybe.
back.
Yes.
and this girl gets in. I'm like, oh, she's got to be foreign or something. Like she doesn't seem like she don't seem regular. It's like she's got to be from the islands or something like that. Wait, cheekbones, all of that. And she was, I was like, oh,
Wait.
yeah, she was. Exactly. That's, I wasn't going to say it. I wasn't going to say it, but yeah, I was like, oh, okay.
Exactly.
She's back. Okay. So that was the first, and it was,
You ain't shoot no shot that day?
nope.
Not that day.
Nope.
Not that day.
So
I was actually still. I think
Yeah,
I
she
was
was-
in a past relationship.
She was still locked up.
But the weird thing is, and I don't know that. It's so hard to say this now because people are like, well, of course you say it now. No, but I really think I got in a car, and all I saw was the back of his head, and I was like, what if that's my husband or something like that?
Wow.
I was in another relationship, full disclosure, but I did just look at him. It was how sometimes you just have those fleeting thoughts that you think is just like, it's just probably something that popped in my mind that maybe I shouldn't think about.
Vince got
But
the
I
best
looked at the
looking
back
back
of
of the
his
head on
head.
earth.
This girl is crazy.
So just
Back of
fast
his head of
forward,
Denzel.
we did this volunteer project, and we found each other in we were serving in a lot of ministries together, and we just became like really, really good friends.
Yep.
So much so that even when like other people were trying to talk to him or in the picture, I was always like that girl that was like, you should talk to this person, you should date this person, and people like they
Pawning
would
me
see
off on
us.
people.
Right.
They would see us, but I was just like, he's like that with every girl. Like
Yeah.
he was the type that, because he has such a big heart. But as you could tell, he's very handsome. All he had to do was smile. So all the girls were like, they'll take like his, like just wanting to be open with them or wanting to allow them to be open. That sometimes how we can be as women, communication is intimacy, and oftentimes because he, he's a good listener, like. He would, like have, we called them, when we had our moments, car chronicles. So we would literally just be in a car till like 3 a.m. talking about who knows what.
Literally
talking
just
about
talking.
whatever. Literally just talking. In the beginning,
Because
we're
car
literally talking.
chronicles can sound a little crazy, but
Right.
we were
It
just
was
talking.
talking. It was talking. But
That's
he
it.
often did that with
Turn that
some
into an
other
episode like Real
people,
Sex.
so they would think it was talking at the time. And they would think like, you know, like they would think there's more to their relationship. So I would think like, I'm like, he's like this with all the girls. So for a while I didn't, we weren't really allowing ourselves to go into that space of, but I feel like over time, we just started becoming more and more attracted to each other, just realizing like, yeah, there's something here. I whenever I thought of doing something, whether it was like going to PA Society for my last job, like in politics world, or doing anything, he was the one that I would think to bring along.
Right.
And we were friends at the time. But yeah, after a while, I feel like we had like a situationship or something like that. We didn't have sex, but we were, you know, doing other stuff. Doing other stuff. And we were, but we weren't official. Mainly kissing. And we were kissing
you know.
when we were in that friendship situationship zone or whatever. And I remember one time, so now fast forward, it's now 2018, January 2018, back up, November of 2017. I called it our dark period. So we were friends. We were about to be in this play, and I was just like, you know what? I think we really need to, like, kind of figure out what this is. So we have to stop, like, our not our friendship, and that's one thing. Even in all of this, we were never
just around each other a lot.
Like we were never like upset with each other. We never had bad feelings toward one another. I was just like, you know, if we need, because we're not moving forward, I think we should just like, you know, kind of separate ourselves from one another for a bit. Like just become real friends, not friends that's like we're always around each other, we're always getting rides together, and then we always end up hanging out with each other until 3 a.m. You know,
trying
like,
to
we were like
uncloud division, like see it like
we were
Set some
like
boundaries.
exactly. We were doing so much that it was like, all right, we're either in a relationship or we're not, and we hadn't set the parameters. Like we didn't say like we're exclusively dating at that point. So it got weird.
Yeah, and I didn't want it to get messy. There were other girls that were attracted to him, and I was just like, I don't want to be that girl that's just like always here and they're like confused. So I was just like, we said we were gonna break in November. So that December, I didn't go over his family's house to decorate the tree, and like that was a thing. Like I went over there, we didn't do that. So January comes around, and it took one car ride. We were like, all right, let's get a ride to this play or whatever. One car ride, and we were back to like where we were, back to 3 a.m. At this point, Car Chronicles included maybe some kissing and stuff like that. So like, we were back to that. So the next Sunday, I was just like, you know, what is going on? And out of nowhere, like these 3 guys that like try to talk to me, all 3 of them like hit me up. One was like, maybe you should sit with me in church today. And another was like,
that is
yo,
so
I'm going
corny.
to Atlantic
That is
City.
so corny.
Yes, it was,
That is
and I promise
yo,
you.
what the
I was like, I got this text like, you know, maybe we should sit together in church. And we weren't even like really talking like that. I was just like, what?
That's just weird.
Let's sit together in
that
church.
is terrible.
Another one was like, I'm out here in Philly. We should link up later. And another one was like, hey, I'm going to Atlantic City or something like that. Like, you should come with me. And I was like,
sir,
hold
right.
up. I just felt like all of this was like a distraction. So I was like, why am I getting flooded with this? So I called Vince, or I texted him. I was like, can you just pray for me? Because I feel like there's just a lot going on right now.
Vince, you trying to sit next to me at church? Pray.
He did. He was probably
was
serving
not-
to do something.
Yeah.
But later that afternoon, and I remember this January, later that afternoon, I asked him, I was like, what is going on with us? Like, what are we doing?
Right.
And he was like, we're trying to force a friendship. And at that, I was like, you know what? Let's just have a conversation. So we went back to our little Car Chronicles Sunday afternoon, and we talked it out. And he was supposed to, like, go on this trip to Miami and stuff. And I was like, well, I mean, you ain't going to be with me going to Miami or whatever. He's like, well, I just won't go. And I was like, oh, for real? Like, you won't go? And
You're just trying to call my bluff.
Right, I'm about to say.
I mean, so we were just like, we'll see how it goes. And one of our, like, biggest, I'll say, mottos was, like, let God lead. So we wanted to establish, like, listen, if it doesn't work out, we're not going to hate one another. Because we built a really good friendship. Like we were able to talk with each other about anything, even about other people that were interested in us or whatever.
Right.
And we also set that we would respect, like if one of us got into another relationship. Like I was like, you can't be hanging out with me if you're dating somebody that's not right to that person. So we had like established a good friendship.
I said that stuff, but like it was you I wanted, so I wasn't going nowhere, and y'all know this. Y'all know this.
Yes.
She for a very long
I got
time.
your own perspectives too.
Was like, he's, we're just friends, and like,
Yeah.
I remember.
Let's say, you saying that.
Like, come on, Bonnie.
yeah, like
This is everything.
This is everywhere.
I know he was.
And on top of that, he has never carried down the
Jesus.
steps.
Oh my gosh. I don't know.
I was hoping you wouldn't bring that up.
Yeah, I still can't remember
That happened. That
Mind you,
happened.
these
It
were
was
like
a
the
ton of
steepest steps I've ever seen. They were like steep as hell. And them the joints, like, you definitely need to hold on to the railing. And he said, no railing. I would just pick up Imani and walk her down 2 flights. I was like, oh, this is...
It was a whole 2 flights of steps.
It was a
That was a long flight of steps.
And we just outside looking like friends, huh?
Yeah, friends.
I don't carry my friends down the steps.
Yeah.
But honestly, I feel like that friendship, us having that friendship, it continues to carry throughout our marriage. So
sure.
like
For sure.
that
Right.
foundation of friendship
It's so
is like
important.
so
Yeah.
critical.
Yeah.
Cause we could just laugh, we could just look at stuff and just laugh together. It's just a different element to like, another layer of our
Yeah.
relationship that I'm really grateful for.
Yeah.
He could be like, yo, your hair look crazy or something, and I just be like, I take that. I mean, that's a part of marriage.
Right.
I try to fix it. That's a part of marriage too, but it's just like
I do
I'll
not do
hear
that.
some
Don't
stuff. My husband, he's a Philly born and raised man, and I grew up in New Jersey,
She
and I
thinks
used
Philly
to
people
laugh.
are
I was
rude.
like, you are so coarse. Like, why do you say things so harsh to your friends? But anyway, that's
We're just
that's
honest.
another-
That's all.
Right.
That's all. That's
yeah.
all it is.
But yeah, we he said, we're fighting a friendship. We said, well, let God lead. And later on that year, that very same year, he proposed, and I had no idea it was coming. We knew marriage was the goal, but we
Yeah.
weren't like, I wasn't like, you better put a ring
Right.
on. Like, we were just loving, like we
We
were
were
just
chilling.
loving.
We were
We were
chilling.
just chilling. We were just having fun. Like, yeah, we just loved like finally being official.
Right.
I'm talking a lot, so I'm sorry, guys. Y'all
No.
Reel me in.
That's important though, because I feel like it's easy to like romanticize like how people meet and be like, oh, like you could ask somebody else the same story and you could have stopped it like, yeah, I looked at the back of his head and I said that's my husband, and skip all like the stuff that like actually took to get to the journey or the journey parts, and just like make it sound like, oh, it was just love at first car ride.
Right.
Like, so I think it's important that you say that. So I definitely am
I love
interested.
Car Chronicles though.
Yeah.
Car Chronicles, and we still we still have them sometimes. Not like to like be. We now have a house that we could talk into.
Right.
And in bed now, like we're gonna be out in the car. And part of that was like trying to protect us. We really did try to like not have like sex
Moments,
like
yeah.
before marriage.
Right.
Not
And,
sex. What is
yeah,
regular sex?
Like regular
Compared to
sex.
sex.
Vince,
What is
know,
regular
we
compared to sex?
were not perfect
His head,
people.
he's
Just put that out there. We were struggling. We were not perfect, and
We
it's
weren't
hard.
perfect.
It's
We
hard. Like
weren't
when you're
perfect.
like,
Listen, speak
our
for
age is
yourself.
to be
Listen, we're all
to
sinners.
preserve ourselves. Yeah. So, but we tried to preserve at least that for our wedding day.
Yeah,
So the
yeah.
Car Chronicles also helped with that to some extent. Like
Right.
it helped us not to like go further.
Yeah.
Something I did forget to mention. One thing that I also knew, like we were supposed to be more. I started having these dreams, and it was so odd to me. I never had dreams about like someone like they're just there in multiple dreams of mine. So like almost back to back to back, I had dreams, and it wasn't about Vince, but I'll be like going somewhere, like taking a road trip or something like that, and he was just there, and I was like, this is so odd. So, because full disclosure, it's so funny how God works. Because I'm praying to God, I'm like, God, help me to remove my feelings and blah blah blah. And I have these dreams, and I'm like, God, the enemy is trying to get me to fall in a trap, or you be thinking, and God was really like just gently like getting
this
me
is
to
okay.
where he actually wanted me to be. But I thought I had a plan in my head, and God was like, all right, but that's not my plan.
Right.
You're
Yeah.
telling
Right.
yourself that's my plan.
Right.
Did I tell you that's
Right.
my
Right.
plan?
Yeah.
And those dreams were so critical in like, and I remember having one where we went into this place called Rice and Things across the street from where I used to live. And like, it was like a chef. And he kept coming out and serving everybody else but us. And we were just waiting. And I was like, oh, it's cool, whatever, you know. We were patiently waiting. We were fine. And then another, like the last time the chef came out, served somebody, looked at us, and he was like, oh. And he went back in. And then he came out with this huge piece of meat. It's weird, but like my dream was weird. But he came out with this like basically like a double portion of what we were supposed to get. And we were like, oh, thank you, that's great, or whatever. Yeah. So it was like things like that. Like God was just like helping me to align with what he was already doing.
Yeah.
God speaks to Imani in her dreams, definitely.
Nah, he said I know how it goes. I get it, and it's like one of them joints. Cause I feel like at least the way I look at it is like if God talks to you in a dream, I feel like that's like one of them ways where it's like I gotta get you uninterrupted.
Yep.
And it's like this is a time where it's like you just sitting there, and I like in my dream I be thinking like, dang, like I don't want to do this, but I have to listen.
Yeah.
So,
yep. Your mind isn't. Yep.
Yeah.
And I tried to think. I was like, this the enemy. Like I'm like playing it. I didn't want to tell him.
She was trying to force the friendship.
I was like,
The devil was like, this is not me.
Forcing a friendship. Forcing a friendship.
Yeah, dang. I was about to say. And that's funny. But I like what's it called? I like it because I feel like Vince, you're wise beyond your years. And for those who don't know,
what are you about to say? What are you
no.
to say?
Wise beyond your years. Like you're
for those that don't know,
super young bull.
Imani is a cradle robber.
I knew you was about to do it.
She
Robbed the
she
cradle.
robbed the
I
cradle.
robbed the cradle.
You didn't see that coming.
We actually talked
like,
about
where's
this too. I didn't where's this going?
Now
I saw it coming. I saw it coming a mile away. I believe you. You're not getting anything over my head. Yes, we
Imani
are
is
3.5 years apart.
3.5 years younger.
Exactly.
That's not
Oh,
that.
thank you, sweetheart. But no.
She's 3.5 years older than me.
Yes. And when we were friends, we actually brought that up. Like, I forget how it came about, but I was like, I'll never date anybody. See, this is ladies, we crack ourselves up because
God be laughing at
we tell
them things.
ourselves,
God was laughing.
we will have our list of who our man is and what he looks like, and he got to be this and he got to be that. And God is like, I'll give you
Chill
what
out.
you need.
Right.
You think that's what you need, but I'll give you really what you need. And yeah, I remember saying, I was like, I would never date anyone that's younger than me, and blah blah. And Vince was in the car with me. He was like, what? And I was like, I mean, I could just picture like me being a kid or a toddler and looking over at this little baby in the cradle or something. I said something like that, and he was like,
Little did you know.
like, so he was like, so if we were to date, like, you wouldn't date me? I was like, probably not. Like,
That is,
just little did I know. God knew exactly what I needed. Because
Right.
Vince is such, and I love his parents so much, and I tell him all the time, like, they did such an amazing job raising him because he's just a good man. It sounds cheesy, and he's probably embarrassed with me saying this, but he's such a good man. Like, he's just a good-hearted person, and I knew that when we were friends. I felt like that often got him in trouble, like just with, there's so many women that cannot understand like what that means.
Right.
And
Stop
think
saying so
some
many
more.
women. Like, it wasn't like, come on, man.
Right.
Like, he ain't around.
Yeah, I
He
wasn't
wasn't like
around like-
sleeping with any, but it's just like, like I said, communication is intimacy.
Right.
So
Keisha, Juanita, Tawanda.
that DMX song
Right.
was,
Oh my
you probably
gosh.
had a lot of, names like that, but
Yo,
Why are you doing this to me?
I love you.
Right.
I love you so much. I love you so much. I'm grateful because he reminds me every day. He's like, he chose me, and I'm grateful for that. Like,
that's it. Yeah.
Amen.
Dang.
Thank you.
So like during this whole time, I gotta ask, like, while Imani's having like visions and full out battles with God, what was going through your mind? Like during the same exact waiting time where it's like, man, I know I got it. Just like,
So I knew during our situationship, like, all right, this is where I'm gonna be. This
Right.
is I had an idea, a thought, some sort of confidence that you were gonna be my wife. And like that's kind of what I knew, and I was kind of working towards that. And then when the go dark period happened, it was like I don't know. Even during that, I didn't like think like, nah, this is over or this is the end. It was just like, all right, this is a part of the process of getting to, you know, us being together.
Yeah.
Because I knew we weren't like, even though it was our go dark period, but I knew we weren't going to stop like being around. Like we went to the same church. I was going to see you every Sunday.
Right.
We were doing that play at the time. I was going to see you
Yes.
Sunday, with Tuesdays or Thursdays, whatever our rehearsal days were, Wednesdays at Bible. Like I was going to see you. We were still going to like, we're in the same friend group. So there was never like I'll say drop off of
Right.
like this is where I'm going to be. I will say, her doing that kind of made me be more serious about excluding the other friendships that I had, and
All the women.
all the women. Yeah, but yeah, I think I took steps towards, all right, this you know, this needs to be put to bed, put to the side.
Yeah.
And I think we had a conversation about that too. But yeah, it just kind of solidified, like, you know, this is where, you know, I want to be.
Wanna be.
And it was helpful too for that step, that very crucial step of like making clear like what direction he was going to with like other women, because a lot of them were my friends too, and I was like, I would never want to be in a position where there's that messiness, you know.
Yeah.
Like I value like, and I still to this day, even though I don't get to speak to a lot of them, but you know, I still value like those friendships, and I'm grateful that I feel like we've never been in a position where it's just been, you know,
Yeah.
like
I would say, especially at church when
combative.
Yeah.
And so, because some people, you know, church is a hospital,
And
people go there because they're sick. So it's not to say like church people should be perfect and things won't happen there.
right.
Yeah.
But oftentimes that can drive like a lot of church hurt.
And I think a good thing that was like protection for us is we didn't cross boundaries with our friends.
Yeah.
So like she didn't talk about this, but there were people looking at Imani as well at the church. So when we got together, people was hurt on her side. The guy who wanted you to sit with him at church, clearly he didn't. But I think because we never went outside of, you know, friendship boundaries with our friends, it didn't become a messy thing. It wasn't like, you know, this happens and, you know, people leaving the church and everybody in uproar and hanging outside your apartment, stuff like that.
Right.
And we didn't have the crazy stuff.
Yeah.
So, and I think that was God's protection. Like, I think we, you know, honored, you know, our walk with him and didn't go crazy like some people tend to do at church. And, you know, we...
but we tried it. Well, not that we tried to go crazy. We tried to go on this... Oh, my God. We tried to go on this trip to Punta Cana. I still feel some type of way to this day about it.
We paid for a trip.
But we paid
booked
for a
it
trip.
and everything.
I paid for it through Groupon, so it was like such a good deal.
Cheap
It
Caribbean.
was all inclusive.
Yo.
It was like, when I tell you it was such a good price, everything aligned for this trip. We were supposed to go on this trip.
We weren't.
Not yet.
No,
'cause
we
I
were
remember-
not
engaged
engaged.
at this
point.
Crystal remembers.
Yeah.
Yo, I thank God though. I do thank God for our church, the Church of Christian Compassion, if we could say that.
Yeah. Why not? I'm about to say.
The Church of Christian Compassion. I thank God for Pastor Lonnie Herndon and his wife Kim. They have been amazing accountability, like spiritual parents to us too.
Yeah.
Pastor Terry too.
Pastor Terry, yes.
Whose car we were in
when we first met.
met.
Pastor Terry,
Yeah.
they've been amazing accountability to us. And I slipped up and said that we were going to go to Punta Cana to Pastor Terry. And she was like, I'm going to pray something happens so you don't go or something.
Oh,
we were like,
And then another pastor,
we were like, whatever. So
she talked to us. Another pastor reached out and was like, "Yeah, I don't think you should go, bro. I don't think that's Pastor A.
Abram?
That's Pastor A." He was like,
and so, Sister
I don't know. You
Marquita,
gonna be
they're
down
also
there?
good accountability.
Yeah, he's always been
Our
good accountability.
pastor called us that night.
Goodness gracious.
When I tell you, we've never had a tongue lashing like this from him. I don't even know if he said goodbye when he hung up on the phone.
He literally went in on us
into
for like
us.
10, 15 minutes
We
maybe.
sat there like this, and then like he hung up, and we're
And he
still
just hung
sitting there
up.
like. So
We were heated.
we were
Heated.
Cause we were like, we're like, yo, we're grown. Like,
Like,
we
we
can
adults.
abstain. We can,
Right,
whatever.
right.
So Vince prayed about it though, and he was just like, I don't know, I'm feeling like this is wisdom. Like we should like kind of like hear the wisdom that's being imparted to us. Like, and he was like, what if it's not even like we fall in that way? Like, what if it's not about sex? What if like, the plane crashes or I don't know, something else happens. So I was like, well, I'm gonna let you lead in this. You do what you think is best. He made the decision for us not to go, and we lost all
that
the
money. We lost that trip.
Everything. We lost the trip. We could not transfer it because it was like a Groupon deal. You can't transfer it.
Right.
We lost the money. To this day, sometimes it hurts my heart a little bit, but I understand and I appreciated the wisdom and the village. Like it's important to have people like that in your.
There's protection in that. Definitely.
As protection, especially as married couples. You need somebody to be like, nah, don't do that. That's not right.
Yeah.
Don't go
And
there.
We so appreciate that.
Yeah, we're grateful.
So
I'm about to say
appreciate
it's really listening because I know if any of Pastor anybody called me and told me snapping on me for going on a trip and I ain't even do nothing yet. Now I'm going twice.
Now
And not in a pastorly way. Like he was talking to us like we was on the
down.
block somewhere. Like, yo, it was crazy.
We were literally sitting there. We were in Vince's parents'
We had the
house
phone sitting on the
kitchen.
table
We were
on
like,
speaker and just sitting there like.
Did your parents hear this?
I don't even know.
I don't
They
think
may
so.
have. They probably would have been in the background.
I'm
Like,
sick.
Like, we
I'm
gonna
about to
mind
say
our
they's
business.
upstairs like
we gonna mind our business. Ooh, push
I'm
it
like,
in back. Yeah, but we
was
do
mad.
appreciate it because who knows,
Man.
right?
Sometimes we need that kind of love.
Yeah.
Absolutely.
And especially when you can trust like they were trusted people to us, like they were. Would you?
Ricky shaking his head like,
nah.
He's like, nope, ain't nobody making me lose that money. No, but we trusted them. We trusted the God in them. We trusted like God was speaking through them. And even though it hurt and I was so salty, we didn't go.
And it goes back to the foundation of like just trying to live for God, do it God's way.
Yeah.
Like it would be irresponsible of us to have people who we consider our accountability, people that we are, especially our pastor, like our head pastor. We're, especially in that position, we were serving in ministry, so we are, under his leadership. So to not listen to clear, like you should not go, like to not listen to that, it's disobedience. So it's and then I appreciate that too because even though she put it on me like if you want to do this, it's up to you, right? But that was a help because that was before marriage, before the engagement, practicing leadership, which is important for husbands in marriage. Like we have to be able to lead and lead in the godly way. Amen. So that was, that was premarital trial, like premarital counseling through, through that situation. So,
and I'm about to say I admire because I didn't know that I guess the show was actually like holding out for as long as y'all was. Because I know for me it's like. We ain't make it. Like we just, any chance I could get, I'm doing it. Like I'm going at it.
You sound like a team.
Right. That's exactly how. But like again, just being honest, where it's like I know that I fell, and it's like I wish like if to go back and do it again, like I would have definitely tried harder to.
There was a I feel like you don't remember this.
No, I do remember where
there was a moment where we
it
tried.
Was like
after we were engaged.
We already engaged,
and it was a couple of months.
It was
But I feel like you like wiped that from your memory.
No, I mean,
like, does not remember this. I'm like, you remember?
No, I do
like
remember
6
because
months.
no, it was
Chris like I struggled for 6 months.
Yeah, that's what I'm saying. Like it was longer than 6 months because we started.
It might have been like 9.
We started when we got engaged in November. Right. We started when we got engaged in November. But then we went on a cruise in December. And I remember
the cruise that mine was on?
Yeah.
Oh, okay.
And we go on a cruise. Gosh. And then I was like, again, in my stupid mind at the time, I was like, you know what? I was like, I ain't never had sex on international waters. We gotta do it. We gotta break the. We gotta go. But that again, that was my thinking. So we ended up like doing. It was like, oh dang, now we gotta start over. But we did.
Now
Go,
we got-
but we did go
we
from
wrote a
December.
contract. Like with God, we had like a contract
Yeah.
with God and signed it. Like,
Wow.
this is our commitment,
my.
Lord.
Yeah, yeah.
We're taking it seriously.
But we did we didn't do nothing from that cruise until I guess the day after our wedding.
Yeah.
Aw, that's awesome.
He's so married.
Because I was like, man,
That's
Good
another
stuff.
story.
Honestly, I be thanking God for grace. What we
Yeah,
grace.
100%.
Yes.
Right,
Thanking God for
Right.
grace.
Yeah.
Because
Yeah.
and honestly, what like that was our personal conviction, right? So
Right.
we I've been reading this book, and like I feel like she's talked about like personal convictions and not always putting like your personal convictions on someone else or
Yeah.
whatever.
Right.
Yeah.
Like, you know, there is like we're believers, so we believe in the word of God. We believe like in what he says, and he, you know, and in essence, like his the laws or commandments or what have you, they're all really to protect us. Like you think about like
yeah.
from the basic, like thou shalt not murder. Can you imagine if everybody was just allowed to free reign and just murder people,
Right.
whatever,
Looking
where
like
we
the
be
Purge.
as
Right.
a society? Yeah. So it's just like, so, you know, but we don't always see some of the other things like as protection. But that said, like God, I feel like his relationship with us is personal, and like
sure.
you know, we had that conviction. We've encouraged people with that conviction, but you know, we want people to like seek God for like, you know, what he's telling you to do, and not beat
Yeah.
yourself up over like, oh well now we gotta, you know, start all over or whatever. It's just like
Yeah.
try
Right.
to like get back up from where you're
Yeah.
at. Like don't let it keep you down, or don't let yourself feel like, you know, you can't get back to, or you're out the count.
Right.
Like look
Right.
at like the blessings, you know, in you guys and what's come out, what you've produced in your marriage, like these beautiful girls, and like all of that is like God's grace.
Amen
You
to
know.
that.
For sure. For sure.
God's love is everlasting.
Yeah.
All right.
So, you know,
Yep.
I'm about to
and
say,
not to
And
make it
covers a
okay to mess
multitude of
up, but
sins.
like,
Yeah.
you know,
Yeah,
when we
yeah.
do, like he still loves us.
I was about to say, and that's
You know?
I think I guess people kind of get out of their mind where it's like God like meets us where we at, not like we got to get to this place
Yeah.
and then that's where God is then at. So I think that
Yeah.
like those are like
Yeah.
the little things that I think people probably don't say enough. And even going back like the personal convictions where it's like something that's not a sin, but if God told you not to do it, that don't mean he told everybody not to do it. It's like
Yeah.
you can do it. And granted, we probably don't look at it as like I probably can't handle this, or like this is protection for me, because if I do it, then I might just go off the rails with it, and then it turns into sin.
Yeah.
So, I think it's wise to listen to those convictions, and when they come, they come.
Yeah. Yeah.
When they come, they come.
Yeah, definitely.
There can definitely be consequences for like disobedience. There can be things that as believers we're just gonna go through generally, like married, single, whoever, like believer, like we're just gonna go through things. Like we're not exempt from feeling the consequences and repercussions of a fallen world. So we're
Right.
gonna struggle. We're gonna like hit like hardships. We're gonna have hit obstacles and things like that. But we have also learned like and seen like, all right, God, we rather like it sounds so funny and churchy, but like there's a scripture that talks about falling to the hands of God instead of the hands of man, and oftentimes like certain like sin would be like we'll be suffering the consequences of things that we did or whatever, versus like just generally like suffering the consequences because you know we're just gonna go through this journey of life and hit like different hardships. But I always think about like God really, he blessed us with a son, and I was like, God gives us children so that we can have like a piece of an understanding of his love for us, because there is nothing that our son can do that will ever like cause us not to love him.
Right.
Like I pray for his life all the time and longevity and like his wife and all that. Our baby's 2 years old, but I'm praying that stuff now. But I'm like, God forbid if he were to ever do something like crazy, he will always be able to count on his parents to love him no matter what. And I'm like, if we can have that much love for our children, like how much more love does God have for us, like as his children? So sometimes we forget that part, and you know, like conviction is different than condemnation, and people will just stay down. So it's like, oh, we messed up in our marriage, or we messed up in our relationship, we can't ever come back from the. And it's like, no, like you know, listen. Get back up again, as you know.
That's your children.
Yes, we'll get back up again. But think about that. Like, I can't imagine anything or anyone loving Trey more than we love him. And I'm like,
God loves us
God
a
loves
million
us
times more than
so
that.
much more.
Right,
It's
right,
unfathomable,
right. Yeah.
unfathomable love. So,
Amen.
Yeah.
Pass the plate. Pass the plate.
Hey!
But I'm about to say, but it's funny, like, cause even like in talking about hardships, cause I was gonna ask, like, y'all, like, y'all went through some like crazy stuff, and in talking about children, like, y'all going through some like hard times, and it's like, what is that like when you're in it?
Yeah. So we can fast forward.
It's rough.
It's rough. We
Lightly.
So back up to like right before we got married, literally. So the timeline was June 2019. We closed on our house. We didn't have a big wedding. We just ended up, you guys know, like we just ended up having a small little wedding in a house because we wanted to put the down payment on the house. So that's what the money went towards.
Smarter than us. Goodness
And we
gracious.
only had, you know, like siblings. Like we could only have like our siblings, our parents. Vince had like an aunt and uncle or so, and our grandparents there. So June 2019, we were set to close on the house, and July 2019 is when we were getting married. So May 2019, like we were hit with like just a complete blow, I'd say, something that threatened our marriage entirely. And we weren't even married yet, but something that like tried to take us out before we even got married.
Right.
And the details of it we've shared with a lot of people in intimate settings. I don't know, maybe a part 2, you know, if you do this or something, maybe I'll count that. But when I tell you it, like, I mean, I took the ring off. I was like, you know what? This isn't, it must not be meant to be. And in that season, we weren't really building ourselves up either. We did struggle a lot with like, in addition to like different temptations for us, like we struggled to just like stay committed to like our devotional time and like filling ourselves up in the word.
Right.
So there was a lot fighting us, and we were just open, like gates were just down for like defenses were down you know, for that fight, and we weren't prepared for that fight. But I thank God for like he always has, even in moments of hardship or when something literally like knocks you off your rocker, he designs like so intricately like people and things, and like you'll just all of it. Like I remember during this time, we were assigned 2 people who we call guardians of our galaxy, and we actually have to follow up with them because we haven't.
Y'all are
Oh, we're
corny.
big Marvel
Y'all
fans.
are corny.
too, by the
Marvel
way.
fans, it's
We're
that's
big
fine.
Marvel fans.
Guardians
We
of our
call
Judge us
them
if you want.
guardians. Yes,
I'm
we
judging,
call them
not
guardians of our galaxy, and they
A sermon series. Guardians of the Galaxy.
I went to a Bible study. So I'll speak on. Can I speak on like the them and how they came about as being like guardians of our galaxy, and then someone at work actually. I went to a Bible study, and she was just talking from the book of Nehemiah, and she was talking about how no matter what came up against them, like no matter what came up against Nehemiah and his people, they did not stop building. They did not stop building the wall.
Yeah.
They had enemies surrounding them. They had people threatening them, but they kept doing the work that God called them to do. So I'm sitting in this Bible study, heated, because I'm like, I don't want to hear this, God. Like, you're supposed to be on my side. Like, I was not trying to hear it. So I literally held my head down the whole time. I was like, I cannot believe she's saying this. And I feel like she kept saying, like, they did not stop building, and they kept building. And it just spoke to, like, what we were trying to do, like, building in our, future marriage. Like, what we saw as the purpose of our marriage. Like when we got engaged, we kept saying that we feel like our marriage should be ministry. So sometimes people say stuff like that, and you don't know what you're gonna get hit with for it to actually be a ministry. And we dealt with infidelity, and we were just like, okay, right before we were closing on the house. Right before we were getting married. And we were just like, I was in this Bible study just like, okay, well, we're not here, Lord. We're not on the same page. What's going on? Like, I thought you're supposed to be telling me something like, you know, cry out to me, daughter, or whatever, or him. I'm expecting some stuff. And, God was really checking me. God was really giving me some stuff. But I was just like, this isn't what we did. But that's how. So she pulled us to the side. Yes.
Goodness gracious.
So the teacher, she pulled us to the side. And should we say her name? Prophetess Tara? Tara brought us and Calvin brought us. They are still, even though we haven't talked to them in a while, we got to reach out to them too. Mm-hmm. They are guardians of our galaxy. And she knew something was immediately wrong. So she pulled us to the back and was like, what's going on? Who broke it? And they counseled us. They, like I would say, it felt like professional. Like it wouldn't even be... if we had gotten professional therapy, which we don't knock, like we think that's very important, but God assigned them to be like literally like professional spiritual counselors to us. And they did something for us and in us that like was a game changer. They were open about their journeys. They were open about like, God can still bring glory out of this. Like he can still get glory out of this. This like have a kingdom mindset. Don't be tied up in what you see right now and how you're feeling right now. Like this is kingdom work. Like you got to think about what the enemy's actually trying to go after. Right. Like what is down the road that you don't know, you can't see, but that the enemy is like scared of, you know? Legacy, like what is that? And I'll even, so the person at my job, Miss Trudy, I love her so much, still see her this day. She is so amazing. Yeah. She told me a story of the last day that she had with her husband before he passed in his sleep. And it was so random. I think this was the first long conversation I've had with her. And ultimately, out of the story, she told me how it was just such a beautiful day. She literally went from top to bottom. I hope she writes her book. I know she will. She's going to get that book out there one day. But like, she told me top to bottom, like this beautiful, like it was just a day, but it was just like a beautiful day with her husband. They had breakfast. They, spent time together. They were intimate together. Like she was just, first time talking to her, she went through the whole story, but her ultimate reason for saying that, she was like, he did pass away in his sleep. And she was like, that's why you have to forgive quickly. She was like, you have to forgive. She did not know that was going to be her last day with her husband. And she said it was a beautiful day. And she said that, and I wanted to ball up and cry. I still do to this day, because I was like, she didn't know me. She didn't know what I was going through. I didn't go around. And that was another thing, even in all of this, like we protected one another. We weren't engaged, we weren't married yet, but we both felt the need to protect one another. We were private. We dealt with this in private, and we allowed ourselves to open up to the people that God assigned us to open up. And it wasn't our parents. It wasn't like certain people. It was very specific people that God allowed us to open up to, and who helped guide us through that time. And I was just like, you know what? She just told me the story. She was one of those people. She told me this story, and I was like, wow. She was like, you got to forgive quickly. And I feel like a combination of all of this, that scripture that talks about God's peace that really surpasses all understanding, I really feel like that was what carried us through. It wasn't easy. We both had moments where we were just like, like this is it worth it? Like, are we gonna make it? At one point we're trying to like get our names separated off the house, and like I'm thinking like, well, we're just gonna have to like, because we were already we were closing on the house. We just extended it to June because they had a kid that was in school. So we were already in the process of like signing papers and signed everything, and so it was like trying to like fight against like what you feel like you want and what God is really doing. And oftentimes, like, we don't choose the paths that God, chooses for us. Man. We don't choose the things that we go through. And sometimes, if we're really honest, if God were to be like, you're going to get here where you have this beautiful marriage with peace in it, and you're going to have a beautiful son. If we say, yeah, we want that, but you got to go through this, some people might be like, well, I don't know, God. Do I have to go through that? You may not choose to go through.
You would avoid the journey.
You want to avoid the journey. But we say to this day, we're so grateful that we went through that season, because that taught us to also you know, we know what like to pray against, right?
Yeah. Right.
We always see each other like
And
we're
how
a
to
team
pray.
and how to pray. We're the team. There's an enemy. Anything that's trying to come up against your marriage, that's the enemy. Sometimes when you're in stuff, you could look at the person as the enemy, right? And
Right.
if that person hurts you, then you could put your protection, your defense mechanisms up, and it's like, oh, I gotta protect myself against this person. But it's like, no, we're the union.
team.
Right.
This is the three-strand cord happening here, us and God. And anything that tries to, our pastor gave us this. He said, think of yourselves as scissors. You need to cut anything that tries to get between you.
Right. Yep.
And we needed to set, like, that helped us to set stronger boundaries. That helped us to see how the enemy would try to fight us. Like, to be able to, like, really strategize. Like, it's about strategy. Sometimes people like, marriage is hard and stuff like that. And yes, like, sure, anybody can say, like, there can be different things, but marriage is beautiful. Like, we're so blessed to have, like, we have peace in our marriage. Like, that, we've been talking about this for a couple of times. We're like, God, we thank you for the peace that we have in our marriage. Like, we don't argue really, like, ever. We can count on our hands, like, the number of times, like, since we've been married that we've had arguments. And that's not to say if you have argument, like,
Maybe hands
it's
and
not
toes. I'm just
Maybe
kidding.
I'm I want to sensationalize it.
No.
Maybe add a little pinky toe.
Right.
You know, and we have disagreements and things like that.
Right.
And
We have
exactly.
disagreements.
Same,
I will
It's
say,
not to say, yes,
we'll have
and-
disagreements, but we don't have fights. You know what I mean? Like,
Yeah.
we're not
Yeah.
fighting
There's a
against
difference.
each other.
Right.
Like
And
you said.
we try to remember that. And sometimes it's hard. Like, sometimes, you know, we'll have something, and thank God for, even again, people that he assigned to us to help cut through some, like, you know, like stalemates, or like, what is it called when you're at a stance or whatever? I don't
It's
know
a
what the word
stalemate.
is.
Yeah, stalemate.
Stalemate? Okay. But yeah, like, overall, like, we feel like this is the double portion that God had promised us when we went through that time.
Right.
And I thought about it. I learned that he was like the last of his name or something like that. And I was just like, well, you don't think the enemy was trying to fight us? Even for that alone, for
I'm about to
legacy?
say, yeah. I'm about to
Like,
say
for
this.
legacy?
Right.
So I'm like, you know, we got to be, this is why strategy and prayer strategy is important, like being aware of those things, because the enemy could have, he didn't want us to get married in the first place. Why? Maybe because we wouldn't have birthed this amazing,
All right,
glorious
tag me in,
boy.
tag me in, tag me
Okay,
in.
tag you. Okay.
Because, man,
I'm
that's
talking.
but you preaching and,
Right.
and all of that.
Wait.
No.
But no, I am not. But all I can talk about is our experience. Like, I can
Yeah,
only talk
yeah.
about what,
Right.
like, the truth of what got us
100%.
through.
Right.
So
Yeah.
I'm sorry,
And
tag me.
no, but it's you had to tag me in because I forget everything, so I had to start
Yes, go
talking
ahead.
before I forget. All right, so who God is to me, how God has revealed Himself to most in my life, in my journey, in my walk, is as an orchestrator. Like, God to me is an orchestrator.
Yeah. Right.
You know, God is provider, He's healer, He's a lot to a lot of people. For me, He's like our master orchestrator, and everything that Imani just walked through spells that out. Like, we had this difficult time, but from the people that He placed in our lives, the messages that He sent, through the people, the tools, the strategy on how to get past that point and grow stronger and keep building together when you didn't want to, when I wasn't sure if, like, oh, maybe I'm not, who I'm supposed to be. Like, there was a
Right,
lot of
right,
self-doubt in me going through that, because it's like, we had gone through our whole relationship without doing anything.
Right.
So it's like,
Right.
yeah, we good. Like, like, we're good. And then this happens, and it's like, what was all of that for? Like, so there were so many layers to what we went through. But God just literally guided us
Yeah.
throughout all of it, which was so. I mean, you talked about the rebuilding of the wall, and thinking about, like, the strategy that He gave us through our guardians of our galaxy. Like, the people, because the enemy was present, like, they were told to build, have a hammer or like something in
Yes.
one hand and have a weapon in the other.
That's
weapon
key.
in the
Yeah.
And like
he preaching.
strategy, like, but that type of, like, that strategy is what helped them to eventually do what God
Yeah.
led them to do in rebuilding the wall and living in that society. And that's what we needed. We needed to have strategy to help us get to a good place, to get to the marriage, to get to signing. We have pictures of us, with our keys, and they are the biggest forced smiles that you will ever see because we were going through hell in that point. And it's like we got our kids, we're happy homeowners. It's like, but it wasn't that time, you know what I mean?
Right,
we were still battling, like we were still trying to figure it out. So if anybody's dealing with anything, going through stuff, like, seek godly strategy. Like,
for
that's
sure.
so necessary, because if you had it your way, my name wouldn't have been on that lease. Like, it would have been her house.
Right.
I would have been with my parents.
Get out of my house.
And I would have been out of all of that money.
All that money.
You think that trip was a lot, man? And going forward, like, the legacy, like, you mentioned, like, my dad is the last person to carry on the Gumbs name. Like, all of his brothers had daughters or didn't have kids at all. So I'm the last Gumbs in our line. So, like, that legacy now Trey can carry on. That could have been cut off at that point. You know what I mean? So there's so much that the enemy seeks to kill.
Yes.
And there is just like such good protection and joy and happiness that we have a father who is so intentional and will orchestrate things to the nth degree to make sure that his children are protected.
Right.
And we have peace, and we are on we're on the bright side.
I was about to say
because of the intentionality of God.
And we can snuff out when there is darkness. But I had to repeat that they were instructed. Y'all got to read Nehemiah.
No,
they were
this is right after they came out of Babylon.
They were instructed to build with one hand and have a weapon in the other. That is amazing. And that, when, like, I just had to, like, highlight that, and thank you so much for bringing that back up, because if it wasn't for being intentional, like, I could have threw myself into drinking, I could have threw myself into a whole bunch of stuff that would have probably felt good for a sec and then still left me back in my same place. But I had to be intentional about, like, seeking God. I read this book, Power of a Praying Woman, by Susie O'Martin or something, and like, it taught me the prayer is not to just be like, God, get him, because we want to pray like, God, change him. It's
fix that nigga.
It wasn't that. It was God, like, was revealing to me, like, the things that I needed to pray, for myself too. Like, how can God work in me? How can God change my perspective? How can God help me to keep a kingdom mindset? So even, like, in the midst of all of that, it really, like, that was our weapon, right? Prayer, like, studying in the Word of God, listening to godly advice, like, from people that God orchestrated to be in our lives. Like, that was all a part of the weapon that kept the enemy, like, back, we were, it was a lot to build with one hand. I'm sure it's a lot to build one hand and keeping a weapon in the other. But, like,
but you need the weapon.
But you need a weapon.
Necessary.
And it was both necessary, and it was hard, and even for some time after that, we had to fight, like, like, going back to that season, or tying everything back to that season. And it's not to say that, like, our hardship ended there. It just it looked different, like, nowadays.
And that's a beautiful thing.
And I just to key in on that point, it wasn't immediate. It was a lot faster than I thought it would be, but but it still was not immediate. And like that, there's so much that you can go through in a relationship, marriage, wherever you at in relationship. It can just be difficult. Like, you got to have patience when you're in a building, rebuilding, learning how to retrust, learning how to grow together, whatever the struggle or the challenge that the relationship is facing, you got to be patient. Like, you can't rush your partner, whether it's spouse, whether it's your fiance, whatever. Like, you can't rush them through a healing process. You can't rush them through learning about whatever. Exercise some patience.
For sure.
Let God do it.
For sure.
Yeah.
God
And
has to do it. You can't,
We
you know.
often would say like we're, and it sounded weird. And at the time, I probably wouldn't have said it because hurt is so real.
Yeah.
But we look back and we're like, we're glad we went through that. Like we needed to go through that time so that we could know how to operate in marriage and what to look out for before. Like there's this. I'm sorry, I keep going scripture, but this is really what brought and still brings us through everything. But there's a scripture that says like you can't like scoop fire in your lap and expect it not to burn you or something like that. Lord forgive me if I'm misquoting, but like but yeah, it's like you can't expect like or a bird sees a trap and it knows to stay away. Like you can't expect to like do certain things or get like teeter or get close to things and not expect to think you're strong enough or whatever, you know? So I feel like it helped us to set like what works for us. Like again, even personal convictions, everyone's marriage is unique to them.
Yes.
Some people are more open, some people are more closed. And it's like what works for you guys. Like you gotta see what you love, like what it has nothing, however you were in the past with whoever else, that does not matter. None of that matters. It is you guys literally against the world.
Yeah.
The order is God, y'all, kids, and then everybody else. And like you have to do what works best. And we had to set different boundaries. We had to have very open conversations. To this day, we'll be like, we have to be open about our struggles so that we know how to attack it. And we both have to look at it like, if I tell him like, babe, I've been struggling, I've been looking at other dudes, like I've been looking at something, or he says like, yeah, I've been on, whatever, YouTube, looking at certain things or whatever. Yeah. We're like that I can't look at him and be like, see, this is why, and right. And he can't. We have to keep a safe space for each other so that we can say that and looking at one another as it's not. He's not hurting me. There's an enemy that's trying to and we're the scissors, and we need to cut whatever's between us out, and that needs to go.
I'm about to say, so and it's hurting him. Like clearly, this is hurting him,
and it's hurting. Yeah. So we had to get to a place in our relationship where we're able to be open about even those things that we're struggling with, so we can attack it together. Like we're the team here. We're the general, commanding officer in general, whatever. And there's an enemy out there that we're both against. So let's attack what that is, and be on one accord and keep a safe space to be able to do that. And be honest and open and transparent.
That safe space is so important.
And it's hard. It's awkward sometimes. You could have some weird conversations.
Oh yeah.
But but you, to even have the safe space, like you as the partner receiving whatever is coming from the other side, like you have to not, like that's weird. Like, ew, you dealing with that or like this is your struggle. Like, am I not good enough? You can't have that. You know what I mean? Like you have to, because then you got to have the mindset like this. All right, we're going to deal with this together.
Right. And I actually got that from Prophetess Tara, Guardian of our Galaxy, way before Vince. Like she gave me that, and she talked about how she and her husband, like they'll be very open with each other like that. And I always hung on to that, and I was like, that's good. But we never knew how we'd be applying it. Like sometimes we'll get tools like in different random place before we're even on a certain path, and you just gotta reach back in that toolbox. Like God has orchestrated all of these things. He's built up all these things, all these life experiences, so that you're able to apply it like when you really need it. Amen. And I'm grateful because we love marriage. We love our marriage. We love what our marriage is doing and our goals, and we love our little boy.
We love planning now.
We're in a planning, kind of like looking at investing and all these different things, and we love it. And I kind of went back to say like, we had some other hardships. And I think you probably touched on it, and we went way off on.
I was about to say we could save it. Now I feel like it's part 2 is bound to happen.
Part 2, right. All right. Well, I know. we'll say that, but it was definitely that's our medical. How they say like in sickness and in health, like those things that people. They may joke like for richer, but it's like, you may go through something and poor happens. So you need to say that vow. You need to vow and mean it, because you're making it before God. Divorce is not an option here. Like we aren't there, and we know like God has He's gotten us through so much already. He'll get us through anything. And it's not to say we're exempt from hardship. We're exempt from nothing else will happen. But we're like, you know, we gotta keep the strategy.
Right.
And you know, we gotta keep the strategy.
That's deep. That's deep. So before we get out of here, I'm gonna ask each of y'all one sentence. The bright side of marriage is
Sex.
Hey, there it is. There it
I have
is.
nothing to say.
Nothing else to
I have nothing to.
leave it
Nothing to add to that.
I'm about to say.
There was no hesitation in that.
No hesitation.
What was the result of
Yes.
Yeah, all right. Hey,
It is a product
There it
of
is.
amazing sex, non-guilt feeling,
There
no
it is.
messiness.
Hey now.
You know how they say like fire is amazing in a fireplace, but if it's let out, it burns down stuff.
Where they say that? I never heard that, but I like it.
I think I got from some service. I don't know, but yes, fire in a fireplace in a protected, safe zone. The marriage bed is undefiled, like pure.
There it is.
That's amazing.
Well.
Our intimacy, because a lot
On
comes
that
from
note,
I was about to say. Right.
gotta hear from Vince.
That's the
that's the mic drop.
That's the mic drop.
Yeah.
That is the mic drop. So,
Marriage is a lot more than.
I have one for
you know.
part two. I'll have
yeah,
one
I'm about to
for
say. We're going to get a part two, but like I said, we thank y'all again for coming out and just being transparent, just sharing your story with us.
Thank you so much.
And not just us, but anybody that might be watching. We are truly grateful. So that wraps us up for the first episode of The Bright Side Show. You can find us on social media at The Bright Side Show 23. Or if you could email us any questions or comments that you might have, something you might want to see on the show, please find us at thebrightsideshow23@gmail.com. And we'll catch you next time. Peace.
All right.